All right, and it's time now for Media Watch. Thank you very much for that, Will. And our very own James Creedon has rushed into the studio to talk to us.
Last minute.
James, we start with the so-called Ice Bucket Challenge. It's a viral campaign that Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates have participated in.
They absolutely have. Actually, let's take a look. I think we have some footage of Bill Gates getting doused in ice water. So this was, he was, I think, challenged by Mark Zuckerberg, who in turn was challenged by the New Jersey's Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey. So there you go. It's a whole viral thing. The idea is you either can get that ice water doused over your head, or pay €100 into the Lou Gehrig's disease charities, also known as ALS. So a lot of people online are saying, isn't it curious that these billionaires are choosing
to opt for the ice water, yeah,
as opposed to giving a $100 contribution. So some people saying, such as there's one article that I think deals with this quite well in Vice magazine, and the journalist's name is Ariel Pardes, and she's saying, look, dumping a bucket of ice on your head does not make you a philanthropist, and actually, in some respects, it's narcissism dressed up as altruism, and it's not really a massive degree of interest in the cause that gets people to do this. By the time the summer heat cools off, people will have completely forgotten about ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, she somewhat cynically remarks. But I think one would hope at least that Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates gave a financial contribution as well as dousing themselves in ice water. And I suppose you could also say that, yes, there might be a bit of egotism, a bit of flippancy about campaigns like this online, but at least the ALS campaign, people are able to harness that to make some money for the cause. So yes, people might be egocentric and they might be trying to show themselves off in wet t-shirts and whatever else, but it's raising awareness and raising money.
Do they have the physique to be in wet t-shirts?
Exactly.
So that's the question.
That's right.
James, you've pulled out several other examples of viral campaigns that are quickly forgotten about.
That's right. This is also in the Vice article. They go down through various campaigns. For example, if I can get down there, this it's going pretty slowly, but you have Coney 2012. We'll remember that. Yes. These are campaigns that went viral, a certain degree of attention being brought to issues, that one in Uganda, and then quickly forgotten about. This Facebook avatar that was adopted by some 3 million people in support of marriage equality in the US. 3 million people and 13 members of Congress. But as this article also points out, the only people who actually had any real influence on gay marriage policy were the 13 people in Congress. So perhaps these are well-intended expressions of hashtag activism, or activism adopting an avatar, but really what are the impacts of that? Also, the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, you could say that it raised an awful lot of awareness, might have even influenced or brought attention to it to the extent that there was foreign assistance brought to bear on the campaign, but actually that has now fallen off the radar, if you so to speak. The hashtag is much more diminished in terms of its use, but there's still 200 girls who
are still missing.
Exactly. So I suppose there is a degree of a lot of attention being focused on an issue, and then that attention quickly gets diverted elsewhere while the issues are still very real. Another one that was mentioned in that article was Haiti, hashtag Haiti, which helped to raise millions at the time for relief, but there's still 150,000 people essentially in shelters in Port-au-Prince. But hashtag Haiti is 4 years ago. The attention has moved on.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, that's often the case.
Yes,
even in news bulletins.
Indeed.
All right, James, next to an article this past weekend in The Observer about Western media turning away from, quote, explaining the world. What is that all about?
All right, well, it's not a completely unrelated theme. We're talking here about correspondents who were assigned to a place for months or years in bygone days, and now you have a lot of reporters who have to handle up to 20 different countries. Now, this piece was written by Anjan Sundaram, who was in Congo Kinshasa for, I think, 2.5 years, and living with a host family, very much experienced experiencing the events on the ground. She points out that since 1996 in Congo, a war has killed some 5 million people in that country, but there's very little attention being brought to that issue in the broader media. Reporters, she says, move sometimes like herds of sheep, flocking to the same place at the same time to tell us more or less the same stories, but with little nuance in the coverage, where often at times it's good versus evil, victim and killer, and narratives don't really have the nuance that you would get from people who are living on the ground, who are living with the people affected, and who know all of the nuances in the story. She gives the example, for example, of a warlord who would be depicted quite often as just simply evil in the Western coverage of it, but actually he became a warlord when armed men stormed into his home and killed his daughter. Unable to protect his family, he formed a militia. These are the sort of nuances, she says, that are often lost in foreign coverage of stories, where the nuances get lost because attention is quickly focused elsewhere, etc. An interesting piece in The Observer this Sunday.
All right, James, thank you very
Thanks,
much
Laura.
for that. That was James Creedon. And that wraps up this edition. Thank you very much for watching France 24. I'll be back in just a few minutes' time.
Reporters.
Kathmandu Airport. Every day, Nepali workers venture to Gulf nations in search of a better life. Some of those workers will lose their lives. For the Himalayan villagers who survive, the Arabian Peninsula is their new home. Their plight is a feverish pace of little or no wages or freedom, all the ingredients of modern organised slavery. From Nepal to Qatar, France 24 investigates the dire conditions